can try and win championships, and that's what it's all about. When you look from the outside and you watch this team, I know we're going to have a real good, solid hockey team this year.
Welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host here, Eric Wilson. And today, we're going to be talking about the New York Rangers projected lineup for the 2022-23 season once again. But today, we're going to be focusing specifically on the second line. And we want to discuss this because Artemi Panarin is the only constant remaining on that second line. Of course, he's a second line left winger, and he has been for, some time now. But now, the center position, the right wing position, completely different. Artemi Panarin's not playing with any of the same players from last year on his line. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he's able to adapt to that, what the chemistry might be like, because Eric even mentioned it. We all know Eric is the biggest Ryan Strome hater to grace this planet, but he even mentioned that Artemi Panarin had some pretty good chemistry with Ryan Strome. So it's going to be interesting to see how Artemi Panarin's able to make that transition with these new teammates and this brand new Rangers second line. And could he potentially move his way up to the first line to gain better chemistry with those guys? That'll be something interesting to talk about. But before we dive into this second line breakdown, Eric, how are you doing today, my friend, and the biggest Ryan Strome hater ever?
I'm doing good. Any video I get to hate on Ryan Strome and then praise Artemi Panarin is going to be a good video for me. So I'm very excited to break this down for y'all.
Absolutely. And if you didn't know, Eric's favorite New York Ranger is Artemi Panarin, so he's definitely excited to talk about the bread man. Eric, give us some insight into why you are such a huge fan of Artemi Panarin.
Well, I used to hate Artemi Panarin. He was like my least favorite player in the league. When he was on Chicago, he scored his first ever NHL goal against us in his first ever NHL game. He scored his first ever NHL hat trick against us. And then he went over to Columbus. And then it was like every time he played us, he would just score some highlight reel goal against us. And I was like, damn, I really hate this guy. He's like a horrible human being. But then, he took a pay cut and came to play with us over the Islanders, who offered him more money. So I was like, wow, this is awesome. And then I went and bought an Artemi Panarin jersey like 15 minutes after he signed with us. And it's ever since then, he's been a very productive player for the Rangers. Every season he's been with us, he's come very close to hitting 100 points. There's always something that comes in the way, like the season being cut off due to COVID, or him being injured, or having to go to Russia to rescue his family from Putin. That prevents him from hitting 100 points. But on this new second line, I think this is his season where he finally hits the 100-point mark.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, he's upgraded from having Ryan Strome as his center, so the possibilities are endless.
Absolutely. I think that there were plenty of open nets that Ryan Strome missed that will now be converted to goals from Vincent Trocheck, which is, of course, leads to more points for the Rangers and more points for Artemi Panarin on his stat line. This could be the year that he does hit 100 points, and I think that there's a really good shot at that. But let's go over that second line and talk about who Artemi Panarin is going to be playing with. Of course, at left wing, Artemi Panarin, center, Vincent Trocheck, and right wing, we're thinking is probably going to be Kaapo Kakko. So he's going to be moving up into the top six, which is going to be super interesting. Huge storyline. Of course, the Rangers just re-signed Kaapo Kakko to a 2-year bridge deal worth $2.1 million average annual value. And that was a huge signing for them just to kind of sure things together there on that second line. Gerard Gallant said that he wants both Lafreniere and Kakko to move up into top six roles. And this year that's going to happen. And Kaapo Kakko is going to be playing that right wing most likely. It seems like that's probably a locked in position for him as we move towards training camp in September. So taking a look at it, Eric, I want your kind of opinion on Kaapo Kakko moving into that second line. I know that we've discussed that a lot, but particularly how he can gel with Artemi Panarin and help Artemi Panarin reach that 100-point mark.
I mean, I think putting Kakko on the second line is just great for the line overall and Kakko himself as a player. Kakko has been buried down on the third line throughout most of his career, and he hasn't really gotten the chance to prove himself alongside like superstar NHL players. Kakko, he plays with a lot of confidence. He makes a lot of great moves, and he always has really great scoring chances, but he's just never able to really finish them. And I know I mentioned this a couple episodes ago, but like whenever he does these things and then doesn't score, it's usually never his fault. Like it's just kind of like a bad luck type of thing. But if there's like one player that I think could help elevate Kakko and have him start finishing these scoring plays, I think it's going to be Artemi Panarin. Panarin is one of the greatest passers in the league and one of the best playmakers. So like Kakko can be like literally on the other side of the ice as Panarin, with like 5 like opposing players in between them, and Panarin will somehow just get the puck on Kakko's stick, and then all he's going to have to do is tap it in. We've seen Panarin make these plays all throughout his career and his tenure with the Rangers, and then now you also have an elite center with Vincent Trocheck there in the middle too. So I think like the ability for Kakko to score goals is just, it's going to increase. Like all he's kind of got to do is just stand in a scoring position and then like make some moves, and then it's like boom, he's going to have a wide open net, and hopefully he won't pull a Strome and blow it. But I have very high hopes for Kakko. I said this last episode, I expect Kakko to score at least 50 to 60 points this upcoming season on this new second line.
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible to see him put up 50 to 60 points. And so we talked about Kakko with Panarin, but now I want to move to the center position. Let's talk about Vincent Trocheck. As we mentioned, Strome, Kopp as well, Andrew Kopp as well, had good chemistry with Panarin. And now we're going to see a different center taking shape on the second line for the Rangers, and that's Vincent Trocheck. Big signing for the Rangers this offseason, first day of free agency. They gave him the bag for 7 years. He's going to be here for a long time. And Eric, I want to hear your opinion on how Vincent Trocheck, his playing style, might gel with Artemi Panarin.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been someone who says that like Panarin makes other players better. Trocheck, when he was on Carolina, he was putting up 50 points a season, and those numbers were like similar to what Ryan Strome did, but Trocheck did it on a team that didn't have Artemi Panarin right next to him. So now that he's going to be like probably playing a similar style of play, has a nice shoot first mentality, you take that 50-point season, now you put 100-point scorer Artemi Panarin next to him. Trocheck should have an elevation in his play. He's doing what Ryan Strome did, but now with a better player. So I could easily see Trocheck scoring close to 70 or 80 points this season. He's going to have a big jump in numbers. The only thing that like might hold him down would be if our predictions about Kakko are wrong and Kakko still doesn't produce on this new second line. Hopefully having Panarin right next to him and then like a young stud like Kakko should definitely increase his play. Trocheck, like I said, he has a very nice shoot first mentality, and his shot is incredible. Panarin really just has to get him the puck, and then Trocheck will just rip it home into the back of the net. So I don't really see like any risk here putting them together. I think it's like the best possible way to do it. The second line as it is right now should be phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement on that as well. And I think when you take a look at it, though, there are some interesting scenarios that we can make up here with Artemi Panarin. We've seen this kind of thrown out by a couple fans here and there about maybe moving him up to the first line. So I do want to, before we wrap up the discussion on Artemi Panarin, I do want to kind of touch on that for a second. Let's see what it could look like if he did move up to the first line. Now, the whole reasoning behind that prediction from some people of Artemi Panarin moving up to the first line is some fans are a little, against moving Alexis Lafreniere over to the right wing, right? He is a natural left winger, and he wants to make a move up into the top 6. But of course, the left wing in the second line is Artemi Panarin. On the first line, it's Chris Kreider. So where exactly does Lafreniere fit in? Well, it's going to be right wing, probably on the first line. That's the projection that most people are making. But what if the Rangers aren't willing to put Lafreniere up onto that first line? And what if they're also not willing to move him to the other side, right? Want to keep him at left wing, maybe put him on the second line. Well, then you're talking about moving Panarin up to the first line and having Kreider play on the right wing. So that could be pretty interesting. Then your lines would be Panarin, Zibanejad, Kreider, and then you have Lafreniere, Trocheck, and Kakko, which could be super, super interesting and definitely a different outlook on the lineup projections. And I don't think it's the most likely projection because I do think Panarin remains in his position of second line left wing. But Eric, I do want to get your take on the potential possibility of moving Panarin up to the first line.
I mean, I do believe that if Panarin were to move up to the first line, that would be the only like semi-correct way to do it. You definitely don't want to break up Chris Kreider and Mika Zibanejad. They definitely have the greatest chemistry on the team out of any two players. They work really well together, and most of our points come from them. But the only reason I would be against that is because then with Panarin on the first line, you have a very stacked first line. You have Panarin, Zibanejad, Kreider, our 3 best offensive players all up on the first line. But then the second line, it takes a little bit of a dip, then it's just Lafreniere, Trocheck, and Kakko. It's pretty much just the kid line, but like boosted a little bit because it's Trocheck instead of Hedl. And in my opinion, if you want to be a Stanley Cup winning team, you really need a lot of like depth. You can't rely only on your first line. So that's why keeping Panarin down on the second line where he's been throughout the last couple of seasons, it really just helps boost both lines. Because then you have a top line who's phenomenal, and you have a second line who's also phenomenal, and then you have like the quality depth in the third and the fourth lines. So I would say keeping Panarin on the second line is the smarter option, just to have like a more well-balanced, rounded-out team. But if it's not working on the second line, I wouldn't be opposed to testing out Panarin on the first line and then moving Lafreniere down to the second line just to see how like this elevated kids line would do. But yeah, if it comes down to it, try it. But safest option, keep Panarin on the second line. Let Lafreniere shine on the first.
I agree. I do think Panarin should remain on the second line. I think it's good to have two really solid lines rather than just overloading one line and having the other one kind of falter and be a little bit weaker. So I think we're, again, in agreement on that one. But I would be curious to see how this boosted kid line could perform. Basically, kid line 2.0, but with Vincent Trocheck inserted into the middle of it. I think that could be pretty interesting, and maybe we'll see some of that in preseason. Who knows? Maybe the Rangers will try that configuration out. But I do think in all likelihood, come the regular season in October, we're talking about Artemi Panarin remaining on the second line as a left wing, and we're having Alexi Lafreniere play right wing on the first line. So I think that's going to be super interesting to see how that takes shape. But Eric, before we wrap up, do you want to give us your stat projections for the entire second line?
Yeah, I'll say Panarin. I think this is the season he hits 100 points. I can see him reaching 110 points this upcoming season. Trocheck, like I said, hopefully 70 to 80 points, and then Kakko 60 to 70 points. So I'm expecting huge seasons from everyone on the second line. New career highs for everyone. I think definitely Kakko. I'm not sure about Panarin or Trocheck, but an increase from last season is what I really expect from all of them.
Absolutely. And that's what we're going to need, right? To make these Stanley Cup finals, we're going to need better play from the second line center. Of course, that was a major point of emphasis for the Rangers heading into the offseason towards free agency. They needed to get that 2C fixed to try and push them up into the Stanley Cup finals, and they did fix it. And I think Artemi Panarin is going to have a massive season playing alongside a huge upgrade over at the second line center. And I do think that those two, Trocheck and Panarin, are going to play together really well in tandem. And I think Kaapo Kakko is also going to have an elevated performance this upcoming season. And I'm super excited to watch it all take shape at Madison Square Garden. So, of course, make sure to leave your thoughts down below in the comment section. What do you think of the Rangers' new second line? And what are your season projections for the players on the second line? And in particular, Artemi Panarin. Do you think Panarin should make the move up to the first line, or do you want him to remain on the second line? Let us know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video. Subscribe if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss a video. And we'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one. And let's go Rangers.
Let's go Rangers! Sorry.
He shoots. He's